They said she was dangerous long before she proved them right. Paula Yates, the blonde, the tease, the tabloid darling. She could turn a live interview into a seduction and a scandal into theater. She wasn't born famous. She built fame with her bare hands, her laughter, and her appetite for chaos. But behind the satin dresses and champagne smiles, there was always a fracture, a crack she never tried to hide, because hiding wasn't in her nature. She wanted to be seen, and Britain wanted to watch her burn. In the 1980s, Paula was the pulse of British pop culture, unpredictable, magnetic, and dangerously self-aware. She didn't play the game, she was the game. She blurred the lines between interviewer and provocateur, between mother and muse. Every man who sat on her sofa came out either flustered or fascinated. She understood something about television no one else did. The real currency wasn't information, it was desire. The tabloids called her Britain's naughty blonde, and she didn't fight it. She laughed, posed, and performed like a woman who knew she was both adored and condemned. But that same laugh that made her famous would later be the soundtrack to her downfall. Because in Britain, women like Paula weren't meant to last. Beneath the surface glamour was a girl raised on confusion. Her childhood was a riddle, a father who wasn't really her father, a mother who floated through fame like a ghost, and a home built on pretense. Paula grew up knowing that appearances were everything, and truth was negotiable. So she learned early how to lie beautifully. Every camera flash fed her, but every headline cut a little deeper. The press didn't just report on her, they owned her. They turned her into a mirror for everything Britain desired and despised: sexual freedom, female confidence, defiance. And when the nation grew tired of worshiping her, it did what Britain always does to its women who shine too brightly. It tore her apart. She wasn't an angel, she wasn't a monster. She was simply a woman who refused to behave. And in a culture that forgives men for excess, but crucifies women for the same sin, that refusal was fatal. Before the drugs, before the affairs, before the fall, Paula Yates was already doomed. Not because she was bad, but because she was real. And real women don't survive long in a world built on illusion. Every tragedy begins with a spark. For Paula Yates, that spark was named Bob Geldof, the rock star who wore sainthood like a leather jacket. When they met, Britain saw it as poetic, the wild girl and the man who wanted to save the world. But what happens when the savior meets someone who doesn't want to be saved? Bob was calm, disciplined, obsessed with order. Paula was everything but. She was chaos with lipstick, poetry in motion, a storm that laughed. He mistook her volatility for brilliance, and she mistook his control for safety. Their marriage was never peaceful. It was a performance of opposites. At charity galas, they smiled like royalty. At home, they fought like animals. Bob would retreat into silence, and Paula would fill the silence with scandal. She was a woman who needed noise, and the quiet of domestic life was her slow death. She once said, "I don't do boring love, I do dangerous love." And dangerous love found her. It happened on live television, The Big Breakfast. Paula, wrapped in satin on a white bed, interviewing Michael Hutchence, the Australian rock god whose voice could melt glass. The chemistry was nuclear. Their eyes locked and the whole country felt it. For Paula, it wasn't attraction, it was ignition. She had just met her reflection. Michael wasn't safe, and that's exactly why she couldn't look away. He was the first man who matched her chaos beat for beat, fame for fame, fire for fire. Together they were beautiful, unstoppable, and doomed. When the affair broke, Britain erupted. The tabloids didn't just report the scandal, they feasted on it. Headlines screamed betrayal. Reporters camped outside her house. Paula became the woman who destroyed St. Bob. Her friends stopped calling. Invitations vanished. Sponsors pulled out. But Paula didn't care. She told a friend, "I finally met someone who makes me feel alive." The problem was both she and Michael were already burning from the inside. Their passion was the kind that eats people alive. Too loud, too bright, too fast. They shared hotel rooms, drugs, and delirium. He was spiraling in fame and depression. She was running from guilt and public hatred. Together, they created a private universe where destruction felt like freedom. When their daughter Tiger Lily was born in 1996, Paula thought she had found redemption. But redemption doesn't survive in fire. 1 year later, Michael Hutchence was found dead in a Sydney hotel room, and Paula's soul went with him. Britain called it karma. They said she got what she deserved. But the truth was simpler and crueler. Paula had loved a man who mirrored her pain, and when he vanished, she was left alone with the reflection. By the late 1990s, Paula Yates had become more ghost than woman. Her lover was gone, her reputation was ash, and yet the cameras still followed, as if Britain couldn't stand the silence of her absence. Then came the twist that no screenwriter would dare invent. The woman destroyed by scandal discovered that her entire life had been a lie. In 1997, it was revealed that the man she called father, Jess Yates, the pious TV presenter, wasn't her father at all. Her real father was Huey Green, Jess's colleague, rival, and friend, another television legend with his own moral rot. The revelation detonated across tabloids like dynamite. TV's naughty daughter, secret love child of Britain's favorite host. They didn't just print the story, they branded it on her skin. Paula wasn't a woman anymore. She was a metaphor, the bastard child of a hypocritical media empire, the offspring of lies and lust. She said once, "I thought I'd already lost everything. Turns out I hadn't lost myself until now." From that moment, Paula stopped fighting. The DNA result didn't just expose her lineage. It confirmed the one truth she'd always felt. She didn't belong anywhere. She tried to joke about it on TV, calling herself a genetic accident, but the laughter was brittle. Every headline sliced her open again. Like father, like daughter, she inherited the scandal. The more she tried to recover, the more the media devoured her. They dug into her addictions, her affairs, her motherhood, her grief. Nothing was off limits. Even her body became a commodity. Her weight, her eyes, her clothes, dissected like evidence from a crime scene. The tabloids had turned her into a circus act, and the audience couldn't get enough. One day she was Paula the tragic mother, the next Paula the junkie. The woman who once seduced a nation now existed as a headline with a hangover. Friends said she'd started locking her doors and talking to herself. She couldn't trust anyone, not the press, not her friends, not even her own reflection. She told one friend, "They'll never stop until I'm dead. Maybe not even then." And she was right. Her identity had been stolen long before her death, stolen by an industry that sells human pain like perfume. Paula Yates wasn't addicted to heroin. She was addicted to being seen. And when the world stopped looking at her with love, she settled for hatred. Because in the twisted logic of fame, visibility is the last drug left when everything else is gone. Grief doesn't make you weak.
It just shows the world who's willing to watch you drown. And the world was watching. After Michael Hutchence's death, Paula Yates didn't fade. She unraveled, publicly, piece by piece. Every time she left her house, there was a camera. Every time she tried to speak, there was a headline waiting to twist it. In Britain's cruel theater, her grief was box office gold. They printed the photos of her crying outside her home. They filmed her stumbling out of taxis. They wrote that she was a disgrace, a mother gone mad. But what they never printed, what they never wanted to see, was that Paula wasn't trying to be wild anymore. She was trying to survive. She'd lost Michael, the one person who mirrored her chaos. She lost her career, her public image, and the right to be seen as human. And now she was losing her daughters. Bob Geldof, the man she had once broken, became her judge and her rescuer. He stepped in, citing concern for the children, and took custody. The tabloids painted him as the saint once again. Paula, meanwhile, became the villain of her own life. An addict, a failure, a cautionary tale. She tried to fight back, entering rehab, giving interviews, pretending to be okay. She told one journalist, "I'm not a bad mother, I'm just broken." But Britain had already made up its mind. Once a woman is labeled mad or unfit, there's no way back. In the late 1990s, Paula's addiction worsened. Police raided her home and found traces of opiates. Every relapse was photographed. Every mistake became a headline. Her face, once glowing under TV lights, was now plastered on front pages, hollow-eyed and exhausted. The tabloids called it the price of fame, but it wasn't fame that killed her. It was the need for it, the desperate belief that being visible was the only way to exist. Her friends drifted away, her phone stopped ringing. She filled the silence with pills, powder, and nostalgia. She would talk about Michael as if he were still alive. She said his voice still came to her at night, a whisper that says, "Come home." The spiral wasn't fast. It was excruciatingly slow, the kind of death you can watch in real time, one photograph at a time. Each headline was another shovel of dirt. Each insult another handful over the coffin of her dignity. And then somewhere between grief and addiction, Paula stopped trying to climb out. She stopped performing. She stopped caring. Because when the world insists you're worthless long enough, you start believing it. By 2000, Paula Yates was living quietly in Notting Hill, unseen, unheard, until the morning her youngest daughter, Tidra Lily, found her motionless on the floor. The coroner called it an accidental overdose. The tabloids called it inevitable. And Britain, for one final time, got what it wanted. A tragedy it could moralize about. A woman it could pity without forgiving.
Time didn't erase Paula Yates. It just turned her into a ghost that Britain pretends not to see. Her death was supposed to be the end, a cautionary tale, a headline buried under 1,000 others. But history, like grief, repeats itself when no one learns. 14 years later, the same headline returned. Peaches Geldof, Paula's daughter, bright, rebellious, outspoken, was found dead in her home. Same cause, same age, same script. Her last Instagram post was a black and white photo of Paula holding her as a baby. 2 lives, 2 overdoses, 1 curse written in fame's handwriting. The tabloids called it tragic symmetry, but there was nothing poetic about it. It was just proof that wounds left unhealed in one generation bleed straight into the next. People said Peaches was chasing her mother's ghost, but the truth is, the ghost never left. It lived in every article that mocked Paula, in every photograph that reduced her to a punchline, in every cruel joke told by a country that eats its women alive. Bob Geldof, now older and quieter, stood at another grave. He didn't speak much to the press. When asked how he felt, he only said, "It happened again." 3 words heavy enough to silence a nation. Paula's youngest, Tiger Lily, grew up under that shadow, a girl born from scandal, orphaned by it, and raised by the man her mother once betrayed. She lives privately now, away from the spotlight that destroyed everyone before her. It's the closest thing to survival that family has ever known. Looking back, Paula Yates wasn't a villain, nor a victim. She was a warning, a woman too raw for the world she lived in, too honest for an industry built on lies. She showed Britain its reflection, and Britain smashed the mirror. In the end, her story isn't about drugs or men or bad choices. It's about what happens when a culture confuses exposure with existence, when fame becomes oxygen, and the moment you stop performing, the world stops letting you breathe. Paula Yates once said, "They'll stop when I'm dead." She was wrong. They didn't stop. They just found new women to destroy. And so her echo remains, and the headlines that still shame women for being too loud, too wild, too real. Every time the world feeds on another downfall, it whispers her name. If you found her story haunting, remember this: behind every scandal is a person who once just wanted to be seen. Subscribe for more untold stories of beauty, fame, and the price of being real.